Thank you, Donald, and good evening, everybody. I'm in Paris today, where I've been meeting businesses who are really worried about a no-deal Brexit. More about that and more about Paris later. Mrs. May went to Brussels today. Now, you know, in the past, it's been very difficult for her going there. They haven't always treated her particularly well. She had a series of meetings today. She began by meeting Mr. Juncker. She then went on to meet Guy Verhofstadt, the European Parliament's chief negotiator, along with Tajani, the president of the European Parliament. And then she met Donald Tusk later on this afternoon. She came out to face the cameras. I would say she was looking pretty businesslike, not perhaps looking quite as under the cosh as she had in the past. This is what she had to say about today's conversations.
Well, I've had a good series of meetings today. We've had robust discussions, but they've been constructive. What I've set out is our clear position that we must secure legally binding changes to the withdrawal agreement to deal with the concerns that Parliament has over the backstop. And taking that, changes to the backstop, together with the other work that we're doing on workers' rights and other issues, will deliver a stable majority in Parliament. And that's what I will continue to push for. Now, it's not going to be easy, but crucially, President Juncker and I have agreed that talks will now start to find a way through this, to find a way to get this over the line and to deliver on the concerns that Parliament has, so we get a majority in Parliament. And I'm clear that I am going to deliver Brexit. I'm going to deliver it on time. That's what I'm going to do for the British public. I'll be negotiating hard in the coming days to do just that.
Did you notice there a Conservative Prime Minister talking about workers' rights as given to us by the European Union? I never thought I'd hear that as long as I lived. Mrs. Thatcher fought hard against it. John Major tried to opt out of those things. Why would a British Conservative Prime Minister be talking about workers' rights? Well, I'll tell you why. Because Jeremy Corbyn talks a lot about workers' rights, and she is beginning, in her calculation, to think that maybe the way she gets a parliamentary majority is to get a lot of Labour MPs to vote for it. One other thing I would say, no mention from the Prime Minister there at all of no deal. No mention that we don't actually, under Article 50, have to have an agreement. There are two options. One is we have a withdrawal agreement. The other is we just leave on WTO terms. No mention of it from the Prime Minister, which I do find, I have to say, very surprising, given that I think it's the strongest card that she's got. But let me say something positive about the Prime Minister, and I know this concept will surprise many of you. But Donald Tusk was pretty rude yesterday about the special place in hell that people like me would go to. And I think by implication, quite a few of the 17.4 million people who voted Leave thought he was perhaps talking about them too. Well, she did actually talk about Donald Tusk today.
I've raised with President Tusk the language that he used yesterday, which was not helpful and caused widespread dismay in the United Kingdom. And the point I made to him is that we should both be working to ensure that we can deliver a close relationship between the United Kingdom and the European Union in the future, and that's what he should be focusing on.
So she's ticked off Donald Tusk for speaking in the way that he did, and quite right too. As I say, not often I say positive things about the Prime Minister, but it's about time some of these unelected bullies were put in their place. And I'm sure from that alone, many of you will think, well, that's not a bad thing that she's done. But, and here is the difficulty. Here is the real difficulty. Guy Verhofstadt, who, of course, went further yesterday than Tusk by saying that people like me didn't even deserve a place in hell, and he is an EU fanatic. Here was what Verhofstadt had to say about his talks with the Prime Minister on the backstop.
Mrs. May today in the meeting assured us that there will be a backstop. That what she said already in Belfast, there is no question to remove the backstop. Our proposal is to try to solve the problem in the political declaration, because we are open as Parliament from day one to upgrade this political declaration, to make this political declaration more binding, more precise, also on the issue of the backstop, explaining and saying very clearly that this is insurance and not more than that.
So there's a difference here, folks, between a withdrawal agreement, which is legally binding, and a political declaration that has about as much force as a child's wish list to Father Christmas. What is it Mrs. May's trying to do? Well, she got the support of Parliament on the basis of alternative arrangements. And many of the Eurosceptics that voted for that took alternative arrangements to mean something different to the backstop. The Prime Minister, if Mr Verhofstadt's telling the truth, which I think he is, the Prime Minister is not looking to bin the backstop. She's looking for some legal guarantee to time limit it, maybe to 2025. And as I say, whatever gets put in the future political declaration, frankly, is meaningless. But the other thing that Verhofstadt said, and this is the thing that really is frustrating me, he is now admitting publicly the thing that I speculated last night to you. I said one of the reasons that I thought that we saw Tusk being as nasty as he was the same reason that I actually saw fear in the faces of Juncker and Barnier last week when I spoke standing right next to them in the European Parliament. They are getting very nervous about no deal, about a WTO deal. Here's what Verhofstadt said about it.
A no deal, as Mr Tajani has already indicated, is for us not an option. It is a disaster on both sides of the channel, and it is in fact irresponsible from some politicians in Britain to go for such a no deal. And
that's me, folks. That's me.
Such a no deal. So that is the opinion that we have clearly stated in the name of the Parliament.
So I'm not just going to hell and a very special place in hell. I'm also being very irresponsible because a no deal would be a disaster. But he admits, doesn't he? It'd be a disaster for them, and that's what I heard from Parisian businessmen today. That is why Tusk behaved as he did yesterday. It's why Juncker and Barnier are very, very worried. And yet, despite the fact that Article 50 says it's a negotiated deal or we leave without one, it seems pretty clear to me, unless there's something that has happened here that we don't know about. I don't think the Prime Minister is playing the strongest card that she's got. I don't think the Prime Minister realises just how scared they would be if she said, look, come on, let's come to a real arrangement, or I promise you, I will honour the promise I made in the press conference today. We are leaving on the 29th of March. All the inferences are from her that we are going to leave on the 29th of March, but with a deal that Parliament can agree, even if it means having to get Jeremy Corbyn's Labour Party on side, even perhaps if it means signing up to a permanent customs union, whatever damage that may do to her own party. So let me ask you, do you think Mrs May has had a good day or a bad day? And I'm going to say this, folks. I think it's been a slightly better day for the Prime Minister. She looked a little bit more assured than we've seen her in the past. She's ticked off Tusk, and quite right too. But I don't think we're any closer to getting a withdrawal agreement unless she completely sells out to Corbyn's Labour Party. What do you think? Good day, 0345 6060 973. Bad day, text to 84850. Stalemate, if that's what you think. Please tweet using the hashtag Farage and LBC, at LBC, and of course, Facebookers, you can comment there too. Let's go to David in Brighton, who is a new caller to the show. Good evening and welcome, David.
Good evening, Rich. Thank you very much indeed for taking my call. I might be a bit disjointed, so bear with me. First of all, good day or bad day?
Yeah.
If she's had a good day, it's by accident, because she has engineered nothing that would be to anybody's benefit in this country. So it really is by accident, and she'll soon convert that back to a normal bad day. There's no question in my mind about that. She's as obstinate as a mule. She's got the cunning of a lemming and the tenacity of Robert the British Spider to maintain a collision course with the electorate in this country. There is something wrong with her. I can't understand how this is a negotiation when we are constantly told you won't accept it, but you won't accept it. A negotiation is about persuasion. I'm absolutely, really, I cannot believe what we are doing as a nation and how much we're on the back foot. No, I'm really sorry.
David. No, David. Look, you are outlining the failure of this Brexit process, which is a failure of leadership at pretty much every level. But David, would you at least agree that she's done the right thing by ticking off Donald Tusk?
Absolutely, but she ticked off Juncker for calling her nebulous, and that didn't seem to make much of an impact on them. I don't think they care. What she should be doing is also referring the same kicking off to Radke, because he's off the hook. He agreed with him at that press conference. He was heard agreeing with him. So
I know, David. David, she's not doing a good job. Thank you for your call. And, of course, it's not just that they're scared, trade-wise, of tariffs being put on their wine, their Prosecco, their cars. There's a little issue of 39 billion. Tony's got it. He says, hi, Nigel. Theresa May has the EU over a barrel. She needs to hammer home the advantage. It's called 39 billion, and I agree. Mark from Stevenage is a new caller. Good evening, Mark.
Good evening, Nigel. Thanks for talking to me.
Not at all.
Yeah, I think overall she's had a good day. To put it into context, I completely agree with you that, putting a Remainer in charge of taking us out of the EU is, frankly, completely laughable. Another point I'd like to make very quickly is that, can you imagine if the boot were on the other foot and it was somebody such as you who had made a comment like this about Remainers? The press backlash would have been furious today, yet the press have said nothing, because let's face it, mainly the press want us to stay in as well. Overall, yes, I think she's had a good day in the sense that it was handled with dignity, and the comment is absolutely disgusting. But having said that, on a positive note, what a rallying call for leave.
Well, no, I agree with you. And Mark, you're quite right. If I'd said there's a special place in hell for Vince Cable, I would be accused of inciting hatred. I would be held up to be a perfect example of somebody who should be driven out of public life. Mark, I agree with you. I think all the mood music is driving public opinion in our country towards saying, do you know what? Let's just get out. Let's just leave on WTO terms, apply to Article 24 and buy ourselves a couple of years. Mark, thank you very much indeed, and buy ourselves a couple